we're talking about FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And it's all over the internet and all over YouTube. And there are lots of famous YouTubers saying start at 20 with $0, retire by 30 with millions of dollars. Today I'm going to talk about that. First, a little bit about me. Whenever I was really young, I saw the power of compound interest and growing money from money, having money work for you. I'll link to one of my early videos. I started saving in a savings account very, very early in primary school and then grew to mutual funds and stocks in my late teens. FIRE is based on the premise, try to earn as much as you can and spend as little as you can. And however big this gap is, you save this gap. So you try to make this gap as big as you can, maximize earnings, minimize expenses, however big the gap is, save all the money, invest all the money, and then when the investments are large enough, you can retire. So the more you can save, the sooner you can retire. And I was all about that life. I was Mr. FIRE before FIRE was a thing. I'm not trying to take credit for anything. I didn't hear about FIRE until somewhat recently, but I lived FIRE in my 20s, so I couldn't really negotiate my wages up. But what I did is, I got a second job. In my 20s, for part of my 20s, I had 2 full-time salary jobs, and life was awful. I went to work at 7 a.m., I got home at 1 a.m. during the week, and on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I had Sunday afternoons off. That was it. I had a wonderful girlfriend who took care of all of my life. Otherwise, I couldn't have done that. So that was the increase my earnings part. And as far as spending goes, I didn't have time to sleep. I definitely didn't have time to spend. So I didn't spend any money. I just saved and saved and saved and saved and saved. I was Mr. FIRE before FIRE was a thing. I wanted to get out of the workforce in my 30s. I'm going to have my money work for me. I'm not going to have a boss. I'm just going to do what I want. So I have some problems with FIRE. We'll talk about those now. I looked at the wealth charts for the US. What's the distribution of wealth look like for 30-year-olds? In the US, if you're in the top 1% of wealth for a 30-year-old, you have right around $1 million of wealth. My first problem with what YouTubers are selling you, where they say you can start with 0 at 20 and retire by 30, is you need to go from $0 of wealth to $1 million of wealth in 10 years. Is that possible? If we negate investing the money, you'd need to increase your wealth by $100,000 a year. If you're 20, it's hard to earn $100,000 a year, more yet save, because savings means you have to pay taxes, you have to pay bills, and then you can save what's left. But you need to earn significantly more than $100,000. If we acknowledge the fact that you can invest that money so you wouldn't need to save $100,000 every year, you'd probably still need to save $75,000 every year, which means you need to make over $100,000 a year to be able to save $75,000. That's really, really difficult. There are very few people in the US saving $75,000 a year, and almost zero, I suspect, doing that at 20 years old. Because you need to earn a ton to be able to save $75,000. You need to earn well over 100 to be able to save $75,000, because you're probably going to pay about $25,000 in tax if you consider Social Security and state tax and federal tax and all that stuff. You need to earn a lot to be able to save $75,000. At 20, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of education, it's hard to do. Maybe if you work for Google or Apple or Facebook, maybe you can do that, but the average guy isn't working for those companies. So my first problem is, it's hard, maybe impossible, to go from last place to first place. If you're in a room of 100 people who are 30 years old, only one would have close to $1 million, according to the wealth distribution. So my first problem is, it's hard to go from last to first. Maybe impossible in terms of wealth, from when you're 20 to when you're 30. That's not very much time. My second problem is my life, as a 20-year-old, doing FIRE was awful. It was no fun. All I did was work. And 20s are supposed to be a little bit fun at least, right? And it was no fun. All it was work, 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 work. And that's not how 20s are supposed to be. You're supposed to live a little. So my second problem is, it's no fun to FIRE in your 20s. I'm not saying you shouldn't save money in your 20s. I'm just saying, if you're trying to go from last to first, you need to be on steroids as far as savings goes, and that leads to a bad decade of life. My third issue has to do with, say you get to first place, say you get to $1 million by 30. Is that enough to live on? So there's something called the 4% rule, which says in retirement, you can withdraw 4% of your wealth, and your wealth won't run out over 30 years. This assumes you retire in your 60s and you live to 90. 4% is the withdrawal rate that's commonly accepted. That's probably too aggressive if you're going to retire at 30, because you're going to have way more than 30 years of retirement, maybe 50 years of retirement. So you probably couldn't pull out 4% per year and expect it to last. So now you should probably withdraw less than 4%. Okay, but let's assume best case, you can still withdraw 4%. That comes out to about $900 a week. There are high schools out there making that wage. So what you're saying is you're gonna retire at 30 and live on a high schooler's wage for 50 years? That sounds not good. Retirement's supposed to be fun. If you want to fix your house, if you want to go on a vacation, if you want to buy gifts, if you want to do anything, you need some money for that stuff. Doing stuff and having experiences aren't free, and you're not going to have any money. I don't know if you're going to even be able to have a car. You're going to have to ride your bicycle to the grocery store to get groceries because you don't have enough money because you're living on a high schooler's wage for 50 years. That's not good. So that's my third problem with FIRE. My fourth problem with FIRE has to do with your professional life. I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Power of One More. Somewhere in the book, he says, fun is fun, but winning is fun. And he's right, winning is fun. Now, what does he mean? He means getting professional wins is fun. Having the best life isn't about doing the least amount of work. Having the best life is about having the best life, and easy does not equal to best life. And what he means is professional career wins are fun. And he's right. You're not going to have many professional career wins in your 20s. In your 30s and 40s and 50s, after the YouTubers are saying retire, those are when wins are going to come. And so you're going to miss out on all your professional wins because you're going to be retired. To me, that's not optimal. To not have any professional career growth or professional career wins sort of sucks. In that way, FIRE is not optimal because you lose all the professional career wins because you're retired. That's my fourth critique of FIRE. My final critique of FIRE has to do with those people who have kids. Parents have the largest influence on kids. Kids learn what parents do. And if kids see their parents retired at 30, then the kids will think they don't need to work. You don't want to teach your kids they don't need to work. Anyone in this world who's going to be very successful needs to know how to work hard. Malcolm Gladwell wrote about Bill Gates in his 10,000 Hour book. In that book, it said Bill Gates was very smart and also very lucky. He lived near a place where he could write code starting in his teenage years. Not many kids had that opportunity back in the day when Bill Gates was growing up. It was very rare that you could find a place where you could write code. So he was smart, and he was lucky to be able to code. But Bill Gates said he didn't take one day off in the decade between when he was 20 and when he was 30. He had to work very, very hard. Being smart and being lucky isn't enough to have lots of success. You also need to know how to work hard. If Bill Gates needs to know how to work hard, everyone needs to know how to work hard. If you have a kid and you FIRE early, your kid's gonna see you not working. That's not good. So those are my 5 critiques of FIRE. I don't know if you can go from last place to first place. You're gonna lose a decade of your life if you go hardcore at it. If you get to $1 million by 30, that's not enough to have a nice retirement off of. You lose all the professional career wins that you might have had, and it's maybe not good for your kids to see you not working. Those are my 5 critiques of FIRE. Now let me give you a couple of caveats. Say you work really hard, you save a lot of money all through your career, and you get to be 60 and you want to retire early. Not 30 years early, but 7 years early. So if you're in the top part of your wealth distribution in your 60s, you don't have $1 million, you have many millions of dollars. You couldn't affect your kids because they're already probably moved out. You already learned how to work hard, you got your professional wins. In this case, if you're trying to retire a few years early, then that's awesome. Kudos to you, congrats, that's great. My critiques don't have to do with those people trying to retire 7 years early or 10 years early, who've done well and worked hard and saved and lived and experienced things and got their kids out of the house. That's awesome. If you want to retire a decade early and you have plans and hobbies and stuff to keep you busy and stuff to keep you happy and stuff to keep you active, your brain and your body, that's awesome. Another caveat. I think what may be optimal is if you work really hard and you get to a place in midlife or even sort of younger life, wherever 30 is, and you're tired of the path, then maybe it's optimal to pivot a little bit. Don't quit work altogether, but find a job that gives you lots more flexibility and maybe a little bit lower pay, but it still gives you insurance and a paycheck, but you like it and you have lots of freedom to do other things, sort of semi-retired. That might be a great alternative to trying to retire early and not having enough money, is change careers to something you love with lots of flexibility and go down a new path. I think that might be optimal. So the 2 caveats, if you're trying to retire a little bit early, not 30 years early, that's all good. And I think maybe the optimal thing to do, if you get to a place where you want to FIRE, but if you don't want to suffer the cost of not having enough money, not getting any professional wins, etc., maybe the best thing to do is to pivot a little bit, find a different career, a different path to go down, and try the new path. I just made this video to help with expectations. All the YouTubers telling you can start with 0 at 20 and retire by 30, I think it's probably not very realistic. And if you expect to do that, you're just going to be let down. Maybe have a little bit lower expectations. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was valuable. If so, please punch the like button below. I'll see you guys in the next video.